Okay, I want to talk about social media for startups and young entrepreneurs. Now, we know that social media is no longer an option, it's an absolute must for companies today. But the problem is, a lot of brands and companies don't really understand how to use social media and they don't make the most out of it. So, I want to ask you, why do you think that is? And what are the fundamentals of a good social media strategy?
Okay, I mean, I think to start with, social media is often misunderstood. A lot of businesses think, well, I need to build a Facebook page, I need to get a great following and get lots of likes, and that's it.
Okay.
The opportunity is way bigger than that. Okay. Social media is a really effective way to do a whole load of things.
Sure.
It's a great way to build awareness. It's a great way to listen to what your customers think and want, and then turn what you listen to into a clearly defined and very personalized plan, which has in it opportunities to generate high quality leads, generate sales for the product or service you're offering, and provide a very cost effective way of punching way above your weight, which of course startup entrepreneurs need to do because they don't have big budgets often.
Sure. Okay. As an industry expert, and a lot of people probably ask this question, is there such thing as a secret formula or a cheat sheet when it comes to achieving success with social media?
I don't think there's a secret formula, but there are certainly some basic principles. And if you get the principles right, then you're likely to be very successful with social media. And if you ignore them, you're probably going to make the mistakes that a lot of businesses make. In fact, the majority of businesses make. So the principles are very simple. I'd say there are three key things here. The first thing is to be very much focused on your customer. Who is your customer? Which social media channels are they using, and what are they doing on those channels? So that's the first thing, and there are many tracking tools that allow us to do that. The second thing is to make sure that you are creating content and information which is really interesting, where there's a very clear value exchange that your customers are going to be interested in. And then the third thing is to make sure that you're selecting the right channels with the right measurement tools that make sure you're not wasting any money. You know, we should be thinking that this is a very dynamic and a very responsive channel, and if you're selecting the right channels and you're understanding which content gets viewed, what responses you're getting and how that's converting into follow-up emails or leads or meetings, and then allocating the budget in a very dynamic way to optimize performance and get you best results.
Okay. Just changing it a little bit, I want to talk about the use of influencers. Okay, some brands and some companies use this a lot. What do you think about them?
Well, the reality is that these days, customers, in particular younger customers, they don't want to be told what to buy. They don't want brands selling. They want to make up their own minds. They want to educate themselves based on the information out there. And of course, we expect the brand's going to say it's the best thing that's ever happened. And they're going to expect that the competitors say it's a terrible brand, you shouldn't use them. So we go to the voice of other customers. So the trick here with the influencers is to figure out who are the most influential people. Is it the industry expert who has an informed view on this stuff? Is it a stakeholder within the business who's got a big personal brand? It may be the chief exec. We've heard a great example this morning from one of the businesses here in this workshop where the chief exec has huge personal credibility and his influence and word matters a great deal. Is it the journalist, for example? And journalists, of course, what we like about journalists is they're impartial, they have a very authentic voice. Or is it some other stakeholder? Is it a very influential person who has a big profile on LinkedIn or maybe on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, whose voice is very influential because they reach a lot of other people. So figure out why they're valuable to you. Figure out the best way to engage that person in the first place. Do you go to a third-party site which can recommend these people?
Okay.
Do you go talk to an agent of celebrities, for example, who can recommend these people, and what's the brand fit?
Yep.
And then you need to figure out how you're going to give them a very personalised service. We were talking to a hotel chain this morning.
Right.
Their influence is, if it's a celebrity, maybe the celebrity wants some anonymity.
Right.
If it's the journalist wants a scoop. They want
Yep.
the first story.
Yep.
And if it's an expert, they want some other very different form of VIP treatment.
Okay.
So you need to figure out what that looks like and what that feels like, and then provide that service, and then critically monitor what value they are bringing to the relationship. You may want to dial some of them down. You may want to amplify those who are getting you particularly good coverage,
Right.
and whose backup and support is particularly positive for your business.
Sure. On the topic of measurement, now a lot of companies, they say I put X amount of money in a social media campaign, and the result of measuring should be conversions. Is it just conversions? Is it likes? Is it shares? What are your thoughts on?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the sort of dark areas for a lot of businesses. They
Right.
think that, oh, we'll do social media,
Yeah.
we'll put some money, and suddenly that will sort of create some magic dust that
Right,
changes everything.
right.
The reality is we've got to be very clear about what is your business objective. Why are you doing social media in the first place?
Yep.
Is it to build following and extend your presence?
Okay.
Is it to change the perception of your business? Is it to find influencers
Yeah.
who will come to you if you're doing some cool stuff? Is it to sell product?
Right.
When you know what you're trying to do, that's the time to create an ROI model.
Right.
And then you want to be measuring the right things. Is it the increase in followers or
Okay.
shares?
Right.
If it's about the content itself, how many likes and shares and follows are you getting?
Okay.
And we can be measuring all that stuff.
Okay.
And if it's to do with conversion, and this is an important thing,
Yep.
what is the return on your investment between the time you spend doing this, the money you spend on sponsored posts, for example, and the number of leads coming through into the call center, the number of registrations on your website, the number of sales on your e-com platform. So
Right.
we need to be looking at getting the right metric
Yep.
for each of those objectives, and then assessing in real time what is the performance. Building clever dashboards that aggregate all of this information into a single place.
Sure.
And there's some serious work to be done in this area as an
Okay.
industry,
Okay.
and then allocate more budget for what's working and switch off the stuff that's not working.
Okay.
It's test and learn,
Right.
you know, as most things in digital are.
Right.
And just thinking that you've got a golden bullet and it works, silver bullet maybe,
Yeah.
but you've got, one solution that works, that's just the wrong thinking.
Okay.
This is always work in progress. We need to be constantly iterating towards a better example of how this stuff works,
Okay.
and be prepared to make some mistakes. There's no bad thing. I do a lot of work with Google.
Right.
The guys at Google actively expect some things not to generate the right returns,
Sure.
and they will indeed reward people for failing.
Okay.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Reward people for failing.
But you learn from that. Right?
You learn from that. And this
Yeah.
is the key thing. You get rewarded if you can explain what didn't work, why it didn't work, and what you're going to be doing differently to share that experience with other people in the business.
Yep.
Because it's about learning, constant learning, and that's what this whole thing's about.
Great. And that brings me to my last question. As a professional in an industry that's constantly moving, how do you stay ahead of the curve?
It's tough. I mean, there are changes in technology. There are changes in trends, how people are using social media platforms. We were talking about WeChat this morning.
Right.
In the last 12 months, we've seen an increase in the number of WeChat users from 700 million to 950 million.
Yeah.
Big increase in 12 months.
Yep.
So what that raises is some big questions about how do you see which technologies are taking shape and
Right.
changing the game. You look at Facebook's roadmap over the next few years, and
Yeah.
it's a whole load of things are kind of ready to go. We
Okay.
don't know which way they're going to jump, so we need to be looking at the technology.
Yeah.
We need to be looking at the customer trends, what are customers happy to do, and critically, which brands are making an early run for this and
Yeah.
delivering great results. My job is all about constantly learning, being ahead of the curve, looking at what great examples and also the stuff that doesn't work, and then having myself a personal action plan
Right.
to be learning and updating myself on a regular basis by reading blogs, by talking to people in my network.
Right.
And my advice to your listeners and viewers is to develop your own learning program.
Okay.
You know, my business, we run a series of webinars
Yep.
to keep customers up to speed every 6 months and
Okay.
update on what's going on.
Okay.
Podcast or a webinar just like this
Okay.
with the latest updates that are relevant to market and industry.
Brilliant, brilliant.